The September 2020 Apple keynote just concluded, and it wasn't the most eventful Apple keynote ever. There were no iPhones, there was no AirTags, no AirPods Studio, certainly no AirPower, and no Apple Silicon Macs. But we did get a couple of new watches and iPads. Look, there were actually a few things that happened at this event that are really big deals, or at least someday will be, eventually. So let's talk about them. But first, we gotta talk about the hardware. They started with the new Apple Watch Series 6. It comes in a few new colors like this pretty dark blue and the MKBHD product red. And then the stainless steel models have also been updated. The gold and space gray, which is now renamed graphite, have had color enhancements. What that means, actually, well, it remains to be seen. But on their product pages, they both look a little bit more steel-like rather than the darker colors that they were before. It now has an S6 SoC, which is based on the A14 Bionic chip found in the iPhone 11, and that makes it 26% faster than the Series 5 Apple Watch. The always-on display, that's now 2.5 times brighter, which sounds awesome, but I really wonder how it will affect battery life, which has been one of the major complaints against Series 5. Now, this is just anecdotal evidence, but both my mom and many of my friends that own Series 5 watches have the always-on display disabled because they find that it often drains the battery before the end of the day. Not good. Now, pricing has stayed the same, but there is a new sensor that's been added, a blood oxygen sensor, or O2 sensor. Now, this isn't some landmark genius invention. You can get blood oxygen sensors on Amazon for like 15 bucks. But to see it integrated so nicely into the watch is pretty cool, especially considering that in conjunction with the barometer, it can make for some pretty cool O2 readings during quick elevation hikes. Now, Apple has really harped on the fact over the last few years that Apple Watch has helped warn a lot of people about early signs of disease and that Apple Watch has ended up saving lives. And while that truly is very cool, something like the ECG and the O2 sensor are likely things that healthy people will end up using extremely rarely or not at all, and can oftentimes, in the cases of false positives, be a deterrent for some. I have a friend who is a hypochondriac that specifically bought a Series 3 just so that she wouldn't feel anxiety or obsession over performing electrocardiogram tests over and over and over once they were implemented into the Series 4. Though for her and other people like her, they can now upgrade to the new Apple Watch SE. Now, Apple Watch SE is kind of interesting and frankly a little confusing. It forgoes the new O2 sensor present in the Series 6, along with the ECG sensor that is now 3 generations old. It also gets rid of the always-on display found in the Series 5, but does retain the use of the older S5 SoC, only coming in the aluminum variant. Somewhat surprisingly, you can still get the SE in cellular configurations, but the price is a little bit, well, it's $279. Now, that price isn't terrible, but it's also not great. You can get a Series 4 for way less than $279 that comes with an ECG sensor, though only an S4 SoC. However, one can reasonably expect that now with the discontinuation of the Series 5 watch, the price on it too will drop, making the SE a much harder sell, at least initially, until existing inventory on the S5, goes away. But truly, I would have hoped for a lower price, especially considering how many feature cuts there are. Somewhat frustratingly, the Series 3 has remained in the lineup from $199. That's now a 3-year-old watch, and it's become a very frustrating pain point for developers, according to what I've read, because it's a 32-bit SoC, which is way old school, and it also has the old screen dimensions of 38 and 42 millimeters, as opposed to the 40 and 44 millimeter screens present on the newer models. That's a little bit frustrating. Let me just take a moment to say real quick that 40 millimeters, it's the true size, and the 44 should never be purchased because it is ugly and huge and dumb. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Neither model ships with a USB power adapter, which is good if you ask me. It still comes with a magnetic charging cable, but gone is that 5-watt USB-A power adapter that they've included for years. Now, from an environmental standpoint, excluding this is huge, and almost everyone has a spare USB brick floating around. Those that don't can just pick one up for like $2 at a gas station. The benefits to this, in my opinion, are way better than the downsides. Now, in the fall, if they exclude it from the iPhone, that might change because a lot of people don't have high wattage fast chargers that have historically come with the higher end iPhone models. But those cheap little 5-watt USB bricks, yeah, get rid of them. Okay, so the hardware is, yeah, sure. They're nice upgrades, but they're not massive. So not massive, in fact, that unless you're rocking a Series 3 or older, I would strongly suggest that you consider not upgrading, especially considering the fact that one of the most exciting announcements from a hardware standpoint were the new loop bands, which will be way better for comfort in workouts without having to deal with a buckle. And thanks to backwards and forwards compatibility on Apple Watches, those will fit on everything. No, the software side is really where most of the stuff got exciting. But, well, hold on, because I'm not done complaining yet. Apple announced some new watch faces that are just, look at them. Look, I'm a watch guy. I love watches, and I have an unhealthy obsession with them. Apple is now the #1 watchmaker in the world by both revenue and volume sales. And their watch faces are still, sorry, they're awful. Legibility is poor. The contrast is horrible. The hand stack and shape of the hands is generally too thin. The dials are either super cluttered, like overwhelmingly busy, or uselessly simple. I mean, look at these. They look cool, but how's that useful? But I guess I digress. There are a few really big updates from a software side. For one, family setup. You can now pair multiple Apple Watches to a single iPhone. And I know it sounds kind of nuts, but I think the idea is that it's for kids that are too young to have an iPhone, but where parents might want to know where their kids are and what they're doing and be able to get a hold of them. It also works nicely for the elderly. More interestingly, the press release stated that by, quote, using family setup, they will have their own phone number through a separate cellular plan and by using their own Apple ID. Now, what remains to be seen is if the Apple Watch is assigned its own independent phone number that isn't shared with any other device, or, more interestingly, if you could share a phone number with, say, a non-iPhone device, like a feature phone for the elderly, or for someone like me who might want an Apple Watch but not an iPhone in their pocket, say, an Android phone? It remains to be seen. Probably not. I'm guessing the watch is just assigned its own number and acts as its own independent cellular device, but that'd sure be neat, eh? Now, the most important announcement today, in my opinion, was Fitness Plus, and I think that it is a huge deal. At least it has the potential to be. There is no doubt that Apple has successfully gamified fitness. Closing the rings and being able to compete with family and friends is one of the biggest selling points of Apple Watch, and Apple is taking that further. Fitness Plus will be a subscription service costing just $9.99 per month for the entire family that will allow you to stream workout and fitness classes for a variety of different exercises on your iPhone or iPad with your watch, feeding data about your personal progress real time. And it changes on what you need to focus on throughout the duration of the workout. It's really cool. For a lot of people, this is an effective motivator. Look no further than the valuation of companies like Peloton and Daily Burn. And if Fitness Plus is good, because the price is right at $10 per month. I mean, Peloton's All Access Pass is $40 per month, and it requires you to purchase their hardware. So if done correctly, Apple could have a massive winner on their hands. The question is, will they do it correctly? Because some of their services like Arcade and News Plus are a little, well, half-butted to be best. You see, they can't just keep the same catalog of classes that they've produced to date. They're going to have to keep adding new content and also consider the possibility of streaming classes live, just like their competitors, because it's been proven effective and motivating. I'm not, as you can tell, a gym freak. In fact, I don't exercise that much at all. But I have been cycling way more than I ever have in recent months, and it's because of engaging, motivating classes with good music that keep you going even though it sucks. I've purchased my first Apple Watch in 4 years purely because of Fitness Plus. I'm really excited about this and really hope that Apple doesn't screw it up. Let's see. What I'm less excited about? Well, that'll be Apple One, the new bundled subscription plan. Look, in theory, this is a good idea because Apple has a lot of different services. And I think it's what a lot of people have been asking for, but it kind of sucks the way that they've bundled them all together. For $15 per month, you get Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Arcade, and 50 gigs of iCloud. Yeah, 50 gigs, come on. No Fitness Plus, though. For $5 more, you can bump your iCloud storage up to 200 gigs and share those same features with the rest of your entire family. And then you can jump all the way to $30 per month for the Premier plan, which is, well, I mean, $30 is pretty expensive. If you already pay for all of these services, you're saving about $20 per month by going for the Premier plan. But I doubt that there's really that many people paying for every subscription service like News Plus and Apple Arcade. If you have a family, $30 a month is actually a pretty good deal. But for a single adult, that's a tough sale. Right now, I only pay $10 a month for iCloud, and then I'll pay another $10 per month for fitness. And I really don't think I'm going to want to spend an extra $120 per year just for services that I likely won't use with any frequency. I mean, if there's a new show that comes out that I really like, I'd rather just pay $5 a month for 2 months of, Apple TV. Now we get to the granddaddy of announcements, the $329 iPad. Just kidding. All we got here were some pretty minor updates. It has a new A12 chip, and that's it. That said, it's probably still one of the best value devices that Apple sells, although too expensive for the education market. Chromebook is just still killing it. It's not that sexy, though, when we look at the new iPad Air, which, well, is. This announcement, I think, took everyone by surprise. I mean, we had seen some renders and some rumors, but holy crap, this thing packs major bang for your buck. It comes in 5 colors. There's the 3 we're used to, plus a new green and blue color, and it emulates the design from iPad Pro. It basically has the same resolution display as the 11-inch iPad Pro. It supports the Magic Keyboard, which is amazing, as well as the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, also fantastic. Goodbye, Lightning Pencil. There's LTE support, Wi-Fi 6, it packs USB-C, which is kind of unexpected in my opinion, and it has the new A14 Bionic SoC. Now, this is the first time since the iPad 2 from 2011 that an iPad has shipped with the new system on chip before the iPhone. The A14 Bionic, as rumored, runs on a 5nm process, packing 11.8 billion transistors. Now, that's impressive. But the chip is not quite as mind-blowing as we were expected to believe. Rumors were saying a 40% improvement over the A13. Now, Apple said this.
Our architecture runs more instructions in parallel, resulting in great performance at lower power. And it integrates large high-performance caches sized to meet the needs of the most demanding applications. For A14's powerful new 6-core design, this results in an enormous 40% increase in CPU performance compared to the previous iPad Air.
A 40% improvement over the previous iPad Air. The 2019 iPad Air did not use the A13 Bionic, but the A12 Bionic. And the A13 was about 20% faster than the A12. So we're really only looking about a 20% improvement year over year, maybe even less. Now, that's still a huge boost to be sure, especially for the iPad Air. But on the iPhone, the improvements are going to be way more modest, even more modest than usual. But anyway, this iPad sounds like a huge winner, especially at $200 less than the iPad Pro. So then what are the downsides? Very few. The biggest omission is the lack of a 120 Hz ProMotion display. Apple doesn't state what the refresh rate is on this iPad, but that means it's going to be 60 Hz. Now, that's not a deal breaker for most people. You really only notice when you're scrolling through content quickly and when you're using the Apple Pencil. I notice, power users notice, anyone that's used a high frame rate display will notice. But the majority of people probably don't care. Now, there are only stereo speakers as well, as opposed to the 4-speaker audio design on iPad Pro. But on the plus side, they've been moved to the top and the bottom of the device, rather than both being on the bottom like the outgoing model, so it's a little bit more stereo. Oh, and Face ID is gone. Wait, what? Because where's the Touch ID sensor then? Ah, in the power button. That's right, Apple's finally figured out how to put the fingerprint sensor somewhere else. I saw a lot of comments and complaints about the lack of an in-display fingerprint reader, but I'm actually pretty happy. I was not amongst those complaining. I've tried both optical and ultrasonic in-screen fingerprint readers, and they've gotten better, but even the recent ones are just not up to par with traditional sensors. And Touch ID has always been one of the best. So it'll be interesting to see if it continues to be when located in a much smaller, tinier power button. My Galaxy Z Flip, which has a similar button style, is hit or miss. The iPhone 12 is rumored to be going to this same form factor, an iPad-style form factor, and I really hope that they add Touch ID. Now, don't get rid of Face ID. I still prefer it in the large majority of scenarios. But in an age where masks are becoming increasingly common, and with winter approaching us, skiers know all too well the problems with Face ID, a secondary fingerprint authentication method would be greatly appreciated. And if it's in the iPad, I think it's safe to assume it will be on the iPhone. Hopefully it's not just on the Pro models. All in all, yeah, good keynote. It's one of the lightest hardware keynotes I remember in recent years, and a lot of it was a repeat of most of the software stuff that we had heard at WWDC. So this was clearly a filler keynote, but it was one that was still enjoyable. What that means, though, is that we've got a lot of stuff yet to come. iPhone 12, AirTags, presumably, if those ever come out, AirPods Studio, and of course, those mean Apple Silicon Macs. There is a lot of exciting stuff between now and the end of the year. So get subscribed and enable notifications if you haven't already. Are you gonna order anything? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you didn't, well, send this video to someone that you dislike. Thank you so much for watching, and most importantly, stay snazzy.